Conor, welcome to Recruitment Unfiltered. So good to have you. So for those who don't know, Conor's a founder of Alchemy Search. It's an accounting and tax recruitment agency here in Dubai. But Conor, you relocated to Dubai 7 years ago with your previous firm that you've worked for. So tell us, what was your experience like? Because it's slightly different. I think most people aren't lucky enough to actually be able to relocate with their company.
Yeah, no, look, firstly, thank you very much for having me. It's nice to be on the other side of the desk here now in the firing line. But yeah, no, I relocated here with, I started my career with Robert Walters in London. Did a couple of years of them in London, then had the opportunity to transfer. And Dubai, it was between Dubai, I think Singapore and Philippines I was looking at, but I had a few friends in Dubai. So yes, I was very, very fortunate that I could move with the business. Obviously they cover your relocation, all those other expenses. So it was actually quite a seamless move, which obviously isn't the case for a lot of people who come out here and risk it all and take the leap of faith. So yeah, I was very, very lucky with that.
Was there any differences between kind of working for the same company here versus working for them in London?
Yes, the best way to put this. So obviously I was in the London office for Robert Walters, which is one of the biggest in the world, where there was probably on the floor alone maybe 100, 120 recruiters. When I came to the Dubai office, I think when I initially went over, there was probably a team of 20.
Okay.
So it was a very, very different. Probably the name on the door was probably the closest thing. But things were very different. Look, London's obviously a very mature recruitment market, so things that we were doing in London, maybe the team in Dubai mightn't have been doing. So I think that's the beauty of working with a global brand where people from different offices were coming in with different ideas. You know, we had one guy, Jonathan Berry, who moved across in the Sydney office. So he brought sort of ideas from the Sydney office. I brought stuff from the London office. And yeah, no, it definitely helped, but it's just a very different environment, because the biggest difference is obviously the cultural nuances where, you know, you go to an office in London where, you know, it's probably 95% white male British people, where I was sort of the odd one out in that office. But then you come to Dubai where it's the complete opposite, where you've got obviously British people, we had Brazilian people, Filipino. So it definitely was a bit of a, not a shock, but it was just something different, which I probably was prepared for.
Okay. And in terms of like the relocation, I guess you've obviously had people working for you in your business who have quit their jobs back home and then moved over here. So do you think it's easier to move with the business that you're currently working for, or?
Yeah, look, it's definitely an easier landing, because if you move across with the business, they know you. So it's not a case where you're jumping across and you're back down to the bottom of the ladder per se. So it is definitely an easier landing. But then, of course, there's a lot of merit in, you know, going for it and starting somewhere else, because it just depends on the opportunities. And as I said, the two offices, you know, Robert Walters was a great company. It still is a great company. I learned a lot from them. I guess the biggest difference is that, like in London, obviously it's very common to go for a beer on a Thursday evening with your team, or a Friday, or even, you know, a cheeky lunch beer with your boss on a Friday if you've done something good, which was quite common in the London office, which was great. Great way to, you know, get on with your boss or your peers. But obviously in Dubai, that just doesn't happen for the most part. So I think, you know, candidates, recruiters that are looking to relocate here, you need to factor in that there is a bit of a different environment. You know, in Dubai, the majority of people drive, so, you know, it's not like everyone's getting the tube into London and can have a few drinks after work. So yeah, it is very different.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. And so you've set up Alchemy a few years ago. So what kind of pushed you to do that?
Ignorance is bliss is probably the best way to put it. You know, initially, when I left Robert Walters, I went into another business initially, and unfortunately that didn't really work out. So it was a bit of a steep learning curve for me personally. But when I look back now, I'm glad I did it all. It's definitely not easy, but it's quite interesting when you're sort of in the eye of the storm. You're going through a lot of pressure, and you don't realize it at the time, but when you get through it, you realize you can do it. And I'd say very much, if you're what is it? If you're good enough, you're old enough. Where I think when I initially came out of Rob Walters, there was probably a bit of imposter syndrome where you felt that you needed to work with someone who had grey hairs or a bit older. I'm starting to lose my hair now, but that's a different story. So no, look, it was definitely worth the leap of faith. The reality is working in a big corporate where I was before, I just didn't have the desire to keep climbing that ladder. And of course, for some people, that's the best way. But for me personally, I didn't want to do it. And that's probably can be one of the big challenges of working for big corporate in this part of the world, is that you are relying on the London HQ to approve things. And, it's not as agile. So, I see myself as having quite a high risk appetite, and you can't do that from my experience sometimes in a big corporate. So
yeah, I think for me, when I was setting up, I was kind of saying, obviously it's scary, I've never done this before, and let's be honest, Rec to Rec is not a finance recruitment agency as well. It's a lot easier to kind of get through to clients and candidates and all that stuff, but I was kind of thinking about it, and I was just like, you know what, the worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to lose some money. Yeah. And you can always make more money. Yeah, exactly. So it's fine.
Yeah, no, look, the biggest thing I've learned in the last, 4 or 5 years from setting up the businesses and being an entrepreneur is you just need to take risks. Yeah. And if you don't take risks, you actually can't grow. There's nobody that's set up a business that I'm aware of that's, doesn't take risks if they want to be successful. Obviously, you're going to make mistakes, and you will. I've made so many mistakes, more mistakes than non-mistakes, I guess. But if you don't have that appetite to take the risks, then I think it's probably not for you.
So let's talk about those. What mistakes would you say that you've made, or that you could maybe, by talking about them, help other new founders avoid?
What mistakes? Yeah, so many mistakes. One big thing I always said, which I spoke about probably last year in an article, was around business partners. I went into initially with a business partner, and through no fault of his or mine, it just didn't work out. And I guess the biggest learning point I actually had in hindsight was when we went into business together initially, we actually never had a row. So we never had a disagreement. It was all lovey-dovey, we're going to take over the world, this is the future for us, blah, blah, blah. And I guess the reality was we actually set up initially in February 2020, so a month before COVID. And obviously the world went a bit crazy and recruitment office got hit very bad. And the biggest learning point was that we never had a row. And then when we had a row, we seen the true colours of each other and realised that the partnership maybe wasn't as strong as we thought initially. So I think anyone who is going into business and is very keen to do it with someone, be very careful, because I think you really need to, how you really know someone is having a fight with them.
Yeah. Or getting drunk with them.
Yeah, or getting drunk with them. You can, well, that can
you can do both sometimes.
That can probably lead to both. But, it's like anything, even in your personal life, with your partner, I'm sure at some points everyone has rows with them, and that's when you sort of understand how you guys work together. And the reality is, leaving your business partner is a bit like a divorce. Like, it is very tough. So that was a fast learning experience I had. And other mistakes I've made, even just setting up, going into an office which you don't really, expensive offices which maybe you don't need. That was a big one I learned. And I think you just have to go with your gut sometimes. Obviously in your space, when you're sending CVs, what's written in a CV is great, but it is about the person. Yeah. And that's probably the one thing I think we've done pretty good. Like, a lot of our recent hires, we weren't planning on hiring them, but you just met the person, and then I have the mindset that if I don't get them, one of my competitors will get them. Yeah. And then if you hear through the market that they're doing quite well, you'll always be kicking
the
yourself.
FOMO is real in recruitment, especially in Dubai.
Yeah.
But I found a lot of clients don't want to say, they'll meet someone, they'll like them, they won't pull the trigger that they want to hire them, but they also won't say no to them. So they just kind of, a lot of candidates, I find them just stuck in a bit of a limbo where, you know, they need to get an offer for the clients to be like, oh, actually, yeah, we do want them. If they want them, I want them as well. And it becomes more of a bidding war at the end.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely go with your gut. And I think the biggest thing is just being fair to employees. Obviously in our job, we do finance and tax recruitment. The reality is nobody calls us if they're happy in their job. If we're getting a phone call from a candidate, you know, they're hardly saying, I love it here, but I want a new job. So you pick up in UAE, a lot of companies are bad to an extent. How they treat their staff sometimes is pretty unprofessional. So the big thing I would say out here is that if you can get your culture not even brilliant, just good, you will stand out. And I'm sure you hear that in your position as well, from recruiters. Hopefully no one from my team is complaining to you.
No one has ever spoken a word to me. So yeah, I agree with you, especially in recruitment. You see there's companies that just look amazing on the outside where they just list all the benefits and they sound incredible. But when you speak to the staff from these companies, everyone wants to leave because the girls are crying every day and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, I've been through that as well, working for a company I'm not going to name, where
just
I
check
was
your LinkedIn.
crying in the toilet every other day because, I don't know, my manager made me call a client for an extra 0.5% on the fee and that kind of stuff. And I was just like, this is pointless. Like, why are you making me do this?
Yeah, look, it's definitely a job not for the faint-hearted.
True.
So there is always going to be dramas. Even with some of our team, there's a few in particular where I get daily updates with them of what's going wrong in their life. So it's more like a shrink than a boss. But yeah, look, I think for anyone coming here, there is so much that you can get right, but you need to be willing to get right.
Yeah.
And if you come here with the mindset where I did this in Dublin, London, wherever it was, that doesn't mean it's going to work here. The big thing here, I'd say, is relationships is the biggest thing. I say a lot of agency recruiters find challenging here is that, you know, for the most part, a lot of the in-house teams or HR actually can be quite difficult to get on with.
Yeah.
While when I was in London, you know, the in-house teams actually really they really see you as an extension of their business.
And they really want to be taken out.
Yeah, and I just enjoy taking them out. But you know, I hear so many times out here, sometimes with HR or TAs, that they're like, yeah, we want you to be an extension of us, blah blah blah. But they just make it so difficult. And that's because maybe they've had bad experiences before. Because obviously the biggest challenge with recruiters is that there is no barrier to entry. And you know, you can have cowboys left, right, and center. You can have guys who are good, but the reality is the stereotype's not very positive in this part of the world. But I see that as an opportunity because if you do your job good, you can be seen as very good. So yeah, it is building relationships, and you know, the guys that we have that are probably billing the best are the guys that are putting in the stuff that nobody sees.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, it comes to them for big jobs.
Amazing. And in terms of your team, I guess, you've probably got the most diverse team in Dubai, which is
we're like
really
the
good
UN
to
nations, we are.
Honestly, I love it. And you've got quite a few accountants working for you as well, which is, again, quite unusual for a recruitment agency.
So the team at Alchemy, we're 10 people in total. I think we've got two Filipinos, 2 Indians, 2 Brits, and then 3 Irish. So we have our Irish quota hit for now. But yeah, look, all we do is accounting and tax. So the qualified accountant piece was I actually trained and qualified as an accountant. Did that for 4 or 5 years, and then I realized I didn't want to be an accountant anymore. I wasn't very good, is the honest reality. So then I switched. I had a bit of a mid-20s crisis in life and said I want to change career. So then I shifted from finance into finance recruitment, went from Dublin to London. And again, I think putting yourself in that pressure cooker of a sink or swim sort of thing, probably, you know, I probably got a bit of luck along the way, but I think really for anyone to grow, you need to be outside your comfort zone.
Oh, 100%,
And I'm not saying that if somebody stays in London for all their life doesn't mean they won't be successful, or Dublin or whatever it may be. But what I see with the most successful guys, CFOs that, you know, we interview when we do our Alchemy podcast is that they've all moved. So I think that's a really big learning point, especially for guys, you know, recruiters that you're speaking to. If you want to really grow and get better, throw yourself out there. And the reason, for example, I went to London to do recruitment as opposed to Dublin is that if I did it in Dublin, I'd probably just still be living at home. I wouldn't be paying rent. It would just be a bit more relaxed. While when you throw yourself into something, you know, you need to be sort of all in.
Yeah, you need to figure it out as well. There's no other choice.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Done that. Look, there was a lot of hard times, you know, in London where, you know, I remember one or two, I got very upset when things fall out, because the unfortunate reality of recruitment is that it's one of the only sales jobs in the world where you're dealing with a product that can change its mind.
Yeah.
And a product that can lie to you. So yeah, you have to be quite resilient. I'd say recruiters, we're definitely not the smartest people in the world. There's definitely
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot more smarter people there, but I do think resilience, there's not many more jobs from that side of things.
Yeah,
you need to be used to rejection.
100%, and like having that dreaded call from a candidate that actually they're not going to start on Monday, which happened to me once just between Christmas and New Year. She was supposed to start on like the 2nd of January or something like that, and she was just like, actually, I'm not going to start. And I remember the director as well made me put it in for the last year, the fees. So then I had to start the year on a minus. Guess what I did? I left, because I was just like, it's just not catching up with that.
Yeah. No, it's
a big fee as well.
You need to be used to rejection.
100%. And just to touch on your points where you were saying about kind of, you know, you're in your 20s, you move to your big city, you're kind of forced to figure it out. I feel like London's level 1. I feel like Dubai is like level 10, where like you really are on your own here. Yeah. Like, you know, in London, like in terms of like the NHS in the UK, for example, like you need to make sure that you've got a visa here. You need to have health insurance, because otherwise if something happens to you, what are you going to do? You really are on your own, and obviously your family's so far away. You know, your friends become your family almost out here as well. So people really, really need to kind of figure it out and take their jobs seriously, which a lot of them don't actually when they move over here.
I think, look, the reality is in your first year, especially coming from Europe, is you just say yes to everything. And I was no different in that. I probably went out gallivanting way too much probably in my first year. And that was reflected probably in my billings as well. So I think there is that period where, you know, everyone's an expat pretty much. So it is quite welcoming from that side. And, you know, all the different sort of nationalities do hang around a bit with each other. You know, I a lot of my friends be Irish guys out here. Then if I have a British colleague, you know, he's out with his British friends in the weekend. Yeah. So there is little cliques. But yeah, the biggest thing I would say, and to the reason why we are quite diverse as a business, is you need to mirror the room, because the difference in this market compared to, again, other markets is that you could walk into a room and you might have 7 nationalities of potential clients. You know, you might have a Lebanese guy in one corner, a Pakistani guy in another corner, a British guy, Australian guy. Everyone's different. And if you can't figure that out, you're going to struggle, especially India, Pakistan. Like, besides you're both quite close but quite different in how things are done. And how business is done is so different. And obviously I see that from, unfortunately, I have to chase invoices sometimes, where there's certain cultural ways that they just have different ways about doing business. And that's super challenging, especially coming from London, where, you know, invoices get paid pretty promptly. Well, I remember when I was at manager at Robert Walters, you do your monthly catch-ups and you see the outstanding invoices, the days. So, yeah, I think that's definitely a big challenging point. But the biggest advice I would say to anyone is that you need to do your homework on the different nationalities and be able to have a touch point with them. You know, I've learned a bit of Arabic, for example, and, you know, I can start and end a conversation in Arabic, and little small, and it's very basic stuff now, but going to that effort is going to automatically be a bit of an icebreaker if you meet an Arab client or candidate. And then, you know, with Emradi's doing the extra work there, because you just need to understand that it is very different. Where, you know, in London, I'm just based on, because I was there, you know, I had to sort of get more interested in soccer, for example, which I wouldn't be too interested in it in general. But over there, in England, you either like soccer or rugby. That's for the most part of the guys I was dealing with. So if you don't, or both, yeah, but they're quite different. The soccer guys and the rugby guys in the UK are different. Rugby boys, their pinky rings and whatnot. So you need to be able to work the room, and if you don't pick up in that small chat, you're just going to be left behind. So I think anyone coming out here, you know, it's understanding that, you know, if you speak to a Pakistani guy or an Indian guy, he doesn't care about football.
Yeah.
You have to talk probably about cricket to them. So it's just little things like that is going to improve the relationships. And as I said, you can only make a first impression once. You can't do it again. And if you make a mess of it, you're never going to be called back.
Yeah, and obviously this region's very big on networking and meeting people for endless coffees and stuff like that. So how have you found that since starting your business? Was it easy enough to kind of get people's attention?
Yeah, see, well, I know I've probably said a few negative things about doing recruitment here for anyone coming here, but the one positive thing is that everybody's looking for a new job. So people who are in jobs, they're looking for a job. So you can go and do a briefing with a CFO or whoever may be in a company, and at the end of the meeting, after them telling you how great the company is and the candidate should love joining them, they'll probably say, and by the way, if you've anything for me, let me know. How
do you go about that with obviously kind of poaching from your clients, I guess, in that sense?
Yeah, look, my view is, you know, you never bite the hand that feeds you for the most part. But look, of course, if some guy's actively reaching out to you, you know, it's fair game, so to speak. But it's obviously you need to be careful about that. But I guess the challenge is at the senior end of the market for us in our space, it is quite quiet. So the majority of our hiring will be mid-level roles. But again, you just need to be careful. Everything should have a long-term approach. And I think the biggest mistake recruiters make is that it's just all about that short-term fee. Because once you get a bad name, it's pretty hard to shake off here, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's tough. It's such a small market as well, and you don't want, you know, other recruitment agencies talking badly about you to your candidates. Oh, I heard Conor did this.
Yeah, and look, I'm pretty sure there has been a few times like that. No one's perfect.
You're so drama free though, because like there's certain people here that would always like to say things about each other. And, you know, me being a Rectoreg, being right in the middle of it, like I know who likes each other, who hates each other, who's friends, who plays golf together and everything, which is really interesting. But never heard anything bad about you guys. So that's good
to hear.
Yeah, you kind of keep to yourself, don't you?
We do, yeah. Because we're very specialist, we don't really.
You're not in competition.
We're not. Well, yeah, not. We've one or two people we would compete, but again, it's very good relationships. You know, Louise from Inspire, we sort of come up against her quite a bit, but again, she's very good. I'm just hoping she retires soon and then leaves us the market, hopefully. But no, it does take time, and I think that's the biggest advice I'd say is that people will meet you. Like I'd say people will be surprised. Trying to do BD here is actually quite easy because if you go in with the approach that the person you're reaching out to is a potential candidate, they'll respond to you. Yeah. And then you can meet them, and then every client is a candidate and vice versa. I heard it's quite hard for terms to actually get signed in here. That it's fine, they'll meet you, everyone will meet you for a coffee, they'll give you their email, and then when it actually comes to getting that signature. Yeah. Now back on the negative piece, the terms getting signed, roles getting put on hold, all these things, internal candidates, it's just very common here. And the reality is the culture nuances, you know, finance people will know finance people. And probably the one challenge with this part of the world is that in the job briefings, the client can be quite specific in what they want, which obviously is unheard of. You can't do that in UK or else you might get sued by HR. So that's why networking is so important with your own people, because it's all about skipping the queue. If you see any job advert, after a day or two, there's probably 1,000 applicants. Yep. 98% of them might be not the right person. So, yeah, and that's where the network piece, I think, is so important. And just, building that up over time. Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on a few negative points. So let's maybe talk about why you chose Dubai over Singapore and the Philippines, apart from having a couple of friends here. Yeah. There certainly was other reasons. Yeah, there was. So what was it? Yeah, I think anywhere east of here is too far. So obviously, as an Irish person, we can just about speak English, but my other language skills aren't very strong. So the reality is, east of here, you can only really go to English-speaking countries. So Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, or Philippines. So yeah, they were just too far. And with Singapore now, there's not this. It's a lot about hiring locals, Singaporeans. So your niche of trying to create an expat-led market out there, I think it would be a lot trickier. And then look, with Dubai, it's only 7 hours from home. You can get back very easily if you have to, with saving the time on the way back. It's sunny, probably based on my red face that's on camera. And look, it has its challenges, but you'll never get bored of looking at a blue sky, even if it's 60 degrees.
Well, it's not very blue now, is it?
No, but yeah, the other day it's a bit humid now. But no, I think it's a great place to. The big selling point that I'd have for Dubai is that it does cater for everyone. A lot of people, in Ireland or UK, they read the Daily Mail and it's all these stories about Dubai, this, what, and everything, which for the most part is just lies.
Yeah.
But if you're really big into cycling, there's a massive cycling community. So it's not just a place where it's just lads going out in the beer every weekend, brunches. Of course, you can do that.
Gets old very quickly.
It does, yeah. And I'm probably a good example. I'm here 7 years, where when I came here first, I was probably in that mindset of just going out every weekend. And now that I've matured slightly, you want to do other things in your weekend, even just golfing. Fitness is pretty big out here now as well, so it is different. Then for the next stage of life, obviously family, kids, it's super safe. I think the schools are pretty good from what I hear, but I think having that comfort of safety and not being worried about anything is pretty important.
Yeah, especially as a woman, I think.
Yeah,
it's great. And if you're thinking of having kids, being able to let them run around without worrying they're going to get stabbed or anything that, I think must be quite nice for parents.
Yeah, well, I think See, the big thing is, like in any big city, I think if you go down the wrong street, you could find trouble. And look, you need to be, you need to have a bit of a street smart about you. But here it is very easy. I think it's good if you went from a hustle and bustle into this environment. I think it'd be very challenging if you were born and bred here trying to go into sometimes a different environment, because
I imagine. And do you think living in Dubai has kind of given you the confidence to actually set up Alchemy Search, or do you think you would have still set up a business if you carried on living in London?
I would have liked to in London, but I don't think it would have been good enough, if I'm honest. I think in London it's just so competitive. There's so many good recruiters. I would say there were probably a fair bit ahead of me. I think the beauty of this place is you can really accelerate your progression, be it within a company, but to set up a business here is actually very straightforward in the grand scheme of things. I don't think I would have done it in London. I don't think I would have had the confidence to do it. But I think when you come out here, and with greatest respect to the majority of recruiters, you can sort of say, right, there's a bit of a gap here. While I think if I stayed in London, there might have been 5 or 10 other agencies like Alchemy that already have that brand. While we're in sort of a niche area, and as long as I'm trying to run the show, we'll always remain in that space. So yeah, I think you can definitely accept. And even people I've known since I came here, a lot of them have left to set up their own agencies, and for the most part seem to be doing very well.
Yeah, I feel like it's the kind of place where, it gives you the confidence, and then you'll have a lot of support around you as well. Like, people are quite welcoming, people are quite happy to help you, happy to give you advice, tell you which bank to have your business bank account with. And
but the
that kind of
brands,
stuff.
like the big difference here, and this probably goes across the board for if you're a recruiter in any agency, like the big brands, they don't hold the same power as they might do in London. Or something. Like when I was in Robert Walters London, you could just be sat there and jobs just get called in. You could just be the lucky person that picks up the phone, and there you go, there's the job, and you fill it and you've made money. While from my experience, that doesn't happen as much now. I do think the big brands with the big corporations, the international accounts, they definitely have the advantage there. But I think the reality is, because the HR and TAs don't have as much power here, from what I see, if you build a relationship with the CFO, he or she will give you the work.
Yeah.
It's not a case you have to go through too much of an exhaustive PSL process, which you would have to do in London.
And obviously being a business owner, I remember when I was at Robert Walters, signing terms was the absolute bane of my life.
Yep.
It took absolute weeks and it was so long, and there was the wording of this, wording of that, lots of back and forth. Whereas in your case, I guess you just read it, sounds okay.
Yeah.
Sign it.
I don't like dealing with lawyers. Yeah, it's all back and forth with those guys. But look, for me, I only care about three things: the fee percentage, the payment terms, and the rebate. Everything else is nonsense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's just it's a lot of waffle. These
Doesn't
guys
matter. And
these guys just have to keep them in a job, writing all these long fancy words in English. But for us, the business, the payment days are obviously so important. And I think for recruiters, the mindset needs to shift from, with the clients where they want to repay a fee, which for me is just crazy. Because we do enough work for free as it is. And if someone says, after 6 months, this person left, so you need to rebate me 25-50% of the fee. No, and it's happened. We got our hands burned once, and I actually just go with the mindset now. If you want to do this, that's fine, but if we ever have to repay you, we'll never work again. So it needs to be fair to, and I think that's probably the challenge here. Like retainers here, from what I see, are non-existent for the most part. It's hard enough to get paid when you've done the job. If you think you're going to get paid before you start the job. But again, the exec search firms and some of the other maybe bigger corporates will have a bit of that. But I think if you were really good at selling retainers, you could do very well here. Maybe I just don't know how to sell them properly, but I think that's very tricky to get done here.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like you said, it's hard to get paid anyway after you've done the work and the person started, let alone get something up front.
Yeah.
And obviously, again, coming back to the part of people not really liking signing contracts here anyway. So to sign up to something where they don't know you. Yeah,
no, it's just, the contracts, we get a lot of contracts, and then you're right, it's just getting them signed. Even, the last quarter, we onboarded a few clients, but when you see, have you got the signed terms, you still don't have them. So maybe it gets caught up with their legal team or whatever. But again, things are just like, even now, we're speaking now July, everyone's out of office at the moment. Like we sent out our newsletter this morning from my account, and every second email I'm getting back is just an out of office.
Really? Well, I mean, it's July.
People are away,
in Dubai.
Sorry, that's probably another point as well for people looking to move here, is that, especially from an agency recruiter, is that you need to appreciate it is quite seasonal. That you're not going to bang fees consistently in 12 months. There will be lulls. It is a bit like a roller coaster where, post Ramadan it booms.
It really is.
During Ramadan it'd be quite slow. And you need to have patience, because there is no contract market here. So people coming from a contract market, this will be quite a difficult market to settle into, because you need to be patient. Things don't happen as quick as...
I think in general, this region just teaches you patience regardless, whether it's driving, whether it's getting your visa, getting anything
and when you're
done.
driving, just expect that a big Nissan Patrol is going to try and flash you off the road at some point in your first couple of months.
Absolute bullies, these cars. But that just comes back to, obviously, with the driving, there's so many nationalities living here, so obviously there's going to be different driving styles
some
on the
indicate,
road.
some don't indicate.
I don't indicate.
There we go. It's a bit like the Donkey Derby or whatever it is. Some people don't even recognize the lines and the lanes, etc. It's all fun. You just have
to go with it, because when people get frustrated at these things, the only person that's getting frustrated is you. So just go with it.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Exactly.
But no, it's there is so many different things to get. But I do think anyone coming here, just come. As you said, what can go wrong? If you don't settle after a year or two, then home will always be there for you. And for the most part, the biggest shift I've seen now with people, when I came here 7 years ago, it was still had that mindset of 2 or 3 years, then you go back home with your cash, build a house and settle down. Well, now a lot more people are buying properties here that are living here, and seeing this as a home for maybe 5, 10, 15 years.
I think it'd be hard to live anywhere else in the world.
I think for women it will be very hard. You have your own carriage on the train, on the metro. You have your ladies' nights and all that sort of stuff. So I think going back to reality would be tough.
I think I've never been on the metro.
Oh, you know.
I can't remember the last ladies' nights I went to, but yeah, I think being a woman here, it's great. I think for girls.
Yeah, I think, and again, that's probably the biggest thing where the stigma is actually very difficult for women here.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. They have a great time.
I mean, you know, my mum, for example, when my mum's Polish, obviously, so they don't know anything about Dubai or that much about Middle East, and it's this whole misconception. So when I told her that I'm going to move to Dubai, she was just like, "Oh, but isn't it dangerous there?
Yeah.
Like, are you not going to get kidnapped?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? It's the safest place in the world."
Well, the Irish mindset is, you can't drink there, can you? And obviously, people have done the brunches. You drink more than ever before, really.
Yeah,
So,
you kind of stop wanting to drink because it's just everything's
well,
just
I haven't
around
got
you.
to that stage yet, thankfully.
Have you not?
No.
And obviously, you've been here for 7 years. Do you think you're going to go back to Ireland?
No, I think if you can get the best of both worlds, where if you can get out of here for a month or two during the summer, back to Ireland or wherever it may be, would be quite nice. But yeah, I think for now anyway, the way things are going, you know, we have a good team inside the business. Provided that keeps growing, then definitely be here for a few more years.
Love it. It's the best place in the world. Like,
Yeah.
I can't see us living. And you obviously touched on your team. So you've got your girls that run your social media accounts, which I think are absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, in such a professional space like accounting and tax, the way that you guys just have fun with all the trends. And obviously I'm impressed because that's kind of what we try and do as well. But I think your girls, they just take it to the next level.
They're good.
I love it.
We always get good. Like the thing is, in business or anything, you know, if people want to work with you, they'll work with you. If they don't, they won't. But if they don't know about you, they'll never work with you.
Yeah.
And I think probably the best thing that Bernice and Tiffany from, you know, they've championed is they're leading. It's definitely not my brainchild or anything. They're coming with the ideas. And I guess, again, probably to my point, ignorance is bliss, where, you know, just go for it. We've never had a complaint about it yet. Because I think the big advantage we have of being a small owner-managed business is that we can do what we want to an extent. And with the bigger corporates, you know, Robert Walters, if I want to do anything like that, of course, you'd have to get approval from London. And the reality is...
You wouldn't.
They wouldn't, yeah. And they're obviously a massive listed company that they don't need to do that. Their brand is strong enough as it is, but we're in a space where we're competing with these big, massive corporates, and of course their bank balances have a lot more zeros than we have, but we've got to think outside the box how we can grab attention. And yeah, from our side, to my point earlier, we're just recruiters. There's no point trying to be like a rocket scientist. Or
I always say we're not heart surgeons. We're not saving lives. Like, let's just have fun with it.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, people know you're a recruiter. Like, obviously we have guys who are qualified accountants, so there is a base level of intelligence. But you know, there's no point. Like, for example, if my friends back home who know me, you know, if they see me trying to be this big corporate guy with a tie up, you know, they'd probably be like, he's a fraud. I'll be getting screenshots going, you're some joke. So yeah, I think it's nice just to have a bit of fun, because the thing is with recruitment is there's a lot of unseen work, which is pretty tough. You know, the guys go through rejections every day, things go wrong. So, you know, it's not all glamour, but it's nice to let their hair down.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, whenever me and Rachel have a tough day or an offer rejected or whatever, I'm like, come on, let's
just have a bit of fun.
Let's record a little TikTok, take some pictures for LinkedIn, do whatever to like take our minds off it and just relax for 5 minutes, because it's not an easy job.
No, it's not. And look, the beauty of it is things go wrong. You know, obviously in my position, we have 7 billers. You never have 7 people on song on the 1 week. There's always 3 of them have had a terrible day. One of them has had a good day. But the reality is you lose a lot more than you win.
Yeah.
Like in anything. So you need to be positive. Obviously, I have to motivate, and that's probably my biggest job. But, you know, you need to have the mindset where you just have fun, because you can have a really bad day. Just go to bed, sleep, wake up tomorrow. It's forgotten about.
Yeah.
And the biggest advice I would say is that someone who's early on in their career, who's having a bit of stress in it, is that you won't remember that day in 10 years' time. If you're having
that day in 3 days,
yeah,
because
well,
in recruitment, things just change.
Even the baddest day. But, you know, the biggest advice is enjoy the wins. Like, the biggest mistake I made as a owner was probably the first year or two not celebrating the wins and letting the downs really get you down. because you just need to enjoy it. What's the point in doing it if you don't enjoy it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's for you to enjoy, and it's for the whole team to enjoy as
Exactly.
well. Like, it's their career at the end of the day.
Exactly,
Like,
yeah. And the thing is, if they're happy, they're going to go the extra mile. Because the biggest thing I say, if the boss is in the room, everybody's pretending to work, and everyone's telling you what you want to hear. I have this interview, Conor, blah blah blah. They don't tell you the bad stuff. So the real character and the team is when I leave the room, or if the boss leaves the room, then you see who's working. As of course, if I'm walking around, they either are working or they're pretending to work.
I've done my fair share of pretending to work over the years.
And don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of it most of the time as well. But you need to work smart, and I think that mindset now of having a change with desk, you don't need that. Like with our team now, we're becoming more flexible with timings, office hours, because at the end of the day, especially we have two ladies who have kids, Pooja and Rudika, they work 7, 8, 9 p.m. at night. They're on their laptops and things. So if they need to go back from 4 till 7 to take care of their child, or all that stuff, just let them at it. Because that's where you lose people.
Yeah.
I think you probably hear it from recruiters, if there's not that flexibility. And like, I'm quite anti fully remote, because I think in a sales job you need to have a bit of a culture.
It's also really boring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think there needs to be a bit of flexibility. But yeah, it's a very hard thing to get everything right at the one time.
Yeah, of course. And you live and learn. Like, you've not been doing this for 30 years to know everything. And, sometimes what you think is great for your team as well, that's not what they want.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trial and error.
You just need to be fair. That's the thing, because you'll lose good people. Because the reality of recruitment is that you can do the best job in the world. You can work as hard as you want in a quarter, but for whatever reason, candidate gets bought back and you end up with nothing. No bonus, nothing. And, I think as management, you need to make sure the guys are working hard, that you still take care of them. Even if it's just a small bonus, or, because you'll lose them. And I think that's one thing we've done quite well, is that even if someone's very, very close and they're working, just give them something. Because then they're going to come back the next quarter even more motivated to do it and make that bonus. Because there's a big difference if someone can do, if someone can do 400,000 or 500,000 dirhams in a quarter, they do 150, but they have the capability. If you don't take care of them, for you being a bit greedy of taking that 150 and not giving them any bonus, they might go somewhere else, and then they'll build 300,000 or 400,000, and you're without that person. You've trained them up, and it is so hard to get good people here.
Yeah, it
which
really
I'm sure
is.
you see.
And once you spend, 6 months, a year training someone and developing them,
and they get snatched by someone else.
They just get snatched because they had a bad quarter and they didn't feel looked after. Because that's what always happens. That's why we've seen so many people start new jobs in July. And, they got paid their bonuses.
Out they go.
And they're gone.
Yeah.
And, they got paid. They didn't feel like they were paid enough. Discretionary bonuses, everyone's favorite in recruitment.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very refreshing attitude. I've not heard anyone say that, to be honest. I've heard of that's what I do with Rachel, for example. We've got our bonus structure, commission structure, where it's paid a month after the candidate starts. But actually I'm like, do you know what? Like, do you want your bonus this month?
Don't be greedy.
Why not?
That's and I said people will respect that. Because the grass isn't always greener sometimes, and a lot of the guys we have, recruitment's been their first job with us. So, I always say, you can speak to other people if you want, but there will be things that other agencies have that are better than us that we just can't compete with. But then there's things I think that we have are better than them.
But like I said before, like some of these agencies out here, they look great on social media. They look absolutely fantastic. But once you actually speak to people who are working there, everyone's looking to leave. So it's not just about the money and the flexibility. It really is about, kind of in Dubai especially, I think it really is about who you're working with and for. Yeah,
and look, I'm sure you hear it. With these some recruiters, there can be a bit of an ego sometimes with them. I'm sure you see it with their salary expectations sometimes when they're looking for roles. But you just need the right people, because a hole is better than an asshole, and that's one thing about
that is such a good quote.
But for your team, you know, sometimes we've had one or two recruiters who are just shit hot, or they're very, very strong. Their billings are crazy, but they're not a good person. And look, if you're having a lone wolf and you can afford to just put them in a corner and let them do what they want, bill money, that's fine. But if you bring someone in that's going to ruffle the feathers of your other team, then you're in a very tricky situation. And, you know, I've seen that in previous roles where, you know, there is these sort of characters. And look, they do great. They bill big money. But you can, especially for smaller businesses, you can't afford to have them. In bigger businesses, you can absorb them. But yeah, you need to get the right fit.
Yeah.
I probably push my limits sometimes as well. When I was billing pretty good, you can sort of feel like you're the man, per se. But that won't last forever.
But in a small company like yours, it just won't slide.
No,
because
it won't.
You've got a whole team to care about.
And because the team we have, you know, we are very diverse. You know, you've got mothers in there. You've got a Jack the lad in there. You know, you've very different people in there. And, you know, you'd never have these people as friends in the outside world.
Yeah.
But when you have to be able to bring them into that environment and make sure, and it does work. Like, don't get me wrong, it's quite interesting. The Indian ladies, Servi and Rudika, you know, they won't listen to Lewis's chat. Lewis is a bit of a Del boy, per se. And some of his chat can be quite stinky.
Oh my God.
So they just take themselves out of the room and just say, I don't want to listen to him anymore. In a nice way.
Yeah, yeah.
In a nice way. They just do their work, and there's a couch outside our office, and they just do they just don't want to listen to Lewis going on about everything.
Fair play.
Yeah.
And just going back to that social media. So I think, you know, even for us, there's been voices I've heard, you know, because we're going to put a video out, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's just like, you know, the voices being like, what are these girls doing? Are they even doing any work? Or are they just trying to, you know, do it on TikTok, do it on LinkedIn? Were you not worried about these voices kind of coming for you guys when you're putting all this effort into?
The biggest thing you learn over time is, you know, not to give a shit what any of those things is. It's sorry for the language, but that's been the biggest thing that we say is that, you know, at the point now, I don't really mind doing any LinkedIn post. While maybe a couple of years ago, I'd be like, oh, what will he think or she think if they see this? The reality is no one cares. You know, they'll make an opinion. If someone's spending their time bitching and moaning about us, then that's their problem. I don't really care.
It's always like the old people used to work for.
Yeah, exactly. And look, these we know these sort of people in life. You know, the guys down the pub on a Friday night saying, oh, let's go off and set up our own business and take over the world. They do nothing. They're still sat in the same position they were 5 years ago. So you need to just not care what people think, but within reason, of course. You can't be saying something insulting or anything like that, but just do it. You know, even with our team, like, the reality is, because a lot of them are accountants and they're quite more introverted than I would be, they find it quite challenging at the start to do posts. Like Rudika, for example, she's a pretty good example. She does our tax space, incredibly introverted, incredibly smart, but she now will do LinkedIn posts on her way to work on her phone.
Amazing.
Which she never would have done before. So I think once people see you get work on the back of it, your name gets out there. You know, when you go to like, for example, you go to events, people are coming up to you and you're like, who are you? Because they've seen your podcast story. So it's all about the brand. And you have to just go for it.
Yeah.
You know, you can be one of these LinkedIn guys just doing nothing, just like someone on Facebook or Instagram police sort of thing that's just lurking, staring at things. That's fine. But the biggest thing is build your brand, I think, out here. But you need to have a bit of substance as well. I think for us, the team, you know, we do have our funny videos, but then at the same time, we do give some value add from podcasts, our quarterly reports. So, you know, we're not just out there.
I think it's a good balance, though, because you show that you're credible, but you also show that you're fun.
We're good crack. We're good crack when we get going.
That's what gets engagement and everything.
We had a paddle tennis event last weekend, and we were the last to leave around 1:30 in the morning.
Oh, God.
Exited from the bar.
Paddled.
Oh, we had the tournament finished at 9. And again, people buy off people they like. At the end of the day, in recruitment, everyone offers the same service for the most part. So when we go to a job, a finance or tax job, you can be rest assured the competitors have the same CV as us for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, an accountant will register with, you know, 4 or 5 agencies. So who gets the job? It's the person who has the relationship with the client. And obviously who can fill the job. But that's why events, having a bit of personality, because even accountants, you know, there's some fun accountants out there.
Oh, yeah. Accountants. I've dated 3 qualified accountants.
Go on. Yeah. Yeah, no, there's some good fun ones in there. And, you know, and that's the beauty of it when you can build a relationship where it's just on WhatsApp. You know, you don't need to do formal emails. You meet up. You don't talk about anything about work, but they know what your job is.
Yeah.
So they'll reach out to you whenever. And if they don't, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the worst thing recruiters do actually is just get angry when candidates go somewhere else directly, or just wish them luck. Yeah, and then don't be a client in 2 years.
Say nothing. You know, as I always say, especially earlier on, you kill people with kindness. When you know someone's a bit of a, you know, whatever we want to call it, but you know, kill them with kindness, because that actually will probably annoy them even more. That you're so little wins like that can be nice. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Conor, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been lovely to have you. Thank you for having me. Lovely.